It is now 1 o'clock, and I see that Derek just got the live stream going. So I will turn it over to you, Madam Chair.
Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Excellent. So I'll call the meeting to order at 1 o'clock. First thing is the approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder for approval of the agenda? I see Councillor Tozo and seconded by Dorothy Ann. All in favor of that agenda? Seeing everyone, thank you. Next is the confirmation of minutes. So I need a mover and a seconder for the confirmation of minutes from our June 6th meeting. And I see Councillor Tozo and I see Dinah. Thank you. And all in favor? Excellent. Thank you. We're going to move right along in our agenda. The next few things is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Are there any disclosures related to today's agenda? Seeing none. Next is delegations, which we don't have any today. We also don't have any briefings today. So we are moving all the way to number 7 on our agenda, which is just business. And the first item is our accessibility standards policy. And I invite Derek to introduce this report.
Thank you very much, Amy, and good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see everybody after the summer. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the report, and then I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards. So, in short, this policy outlines how the city will meet its obligations under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act and its associated regulation, the Integrated Accessibility Standards Regulation. You'll notice that it was organized into 2 sections. The first section is fairly dense legal wording that is primarily recitation of all the legal aspects of the city shall do these things. I think, while that is important, I think the part that is probably of more interest to the committee as well as city staff is the second portion, which sort of I would characterize it as providing the best practices and the sort of go-to for implementation of city policy to reach those requirements under the various provincial legislation. So that was one that I thought was the best way to organize the policy. It also exists not only for city staff, but it also exists to provide the public with an understanding of what the city is doing to meet its requirements under accessibility. If you're familiar with the provincial legislation, there is a fair amount of requirement for the city to disclose and share publicly via its website and other matters the policies that we have. So this policy is probably the biggest overarching policy for accessibility within the city, and it also touches on other policies and references other policies the city has regarding accessibility. A key thing I'd like to emphasize with this is that what is in here is to make sure the city meets the minimum standards. There's nothing in this that precludes the city from going above and beyond and reaching the highest level of accessibility and inclusion possible. So that is the importance of a document is words, and sometimes words lack context. So I think this leads me into an important part that I'll touch on at the end of my discussion, which is the training and the implementation aspect of this. I do want to just briefly note that the original policy was created in 2013 and did receive some minor updates a few years later. So this is a wholesale review and requesting that the old policy be rescinded and the new policy to replace it. Work on this policy has been ongoing throughout 2024. There were several meetings I had internally with city staff who are the subject matter experts in the areas such as transportation, customer service, all the other areas that are defined in there that touch on all the city's work. And I'd also like to thank members of the committee who helped in the review of this, specifically Dinah, Andy, and Penny, who reviewed, sat down with me, went through it, and helped to make sure that it was a policy that hopefully meets everybody's needs. In terms of what will happen with next steps is if it is approved by the committee today, it will go to council at its next meeting in September, which, looking at my calendar, is on September the 17th. And if it is approved by council, it will become an official city policy. In terms of where things will go for staff, My intention is to see a training program developed via our e-learning system that will focus on the best practices, particularly focused with customer service, as well as where staff can go to find the various policies on this. So it's an awareness as well as empowerment of staff so that they can provide the best level of customer service to persons with disabilities. That would probably take place throughout early 2025. I will also be offering in-person training opportunities for city staff if they wish to have more of a particular focus or knowledge on areas of the policy, and has been discussed with my aforementioned group of Dinah, Andy, and Penny, is there's potential for creating some, I'll call them video content that could help, and I would be looking for assistance from any interested volunteers on the committee in helping to create that content, whether or not being participants or providing feedback. But that would be something that would be looking for 2025. And with that, Amy, I'm happy to turn it over back to you and answer any questions or receive any feedback.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So are there any questions from the committee for Derek on this? Megan?
Not so much a question, but just offering a bit of positive feedback. I really appreciate that this new policy is formatted in a way that's more referenceable than the last one. The set of, you can go to like, section 3, subsection 3.2, 3.2a, be able to reference it rather than have to go count down like 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, 5th bullet point. And, so just in terms of the kind of cognitive load being taken off a little bit, I really do appreciate that in terms of the format. Yeah, just thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Andy, sorry.
I forgot how to unmute for a second there. Dinah, do you want me to go ahead or pass it to you? Dinah, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Sorry. I just wanted to make an amendment to the section on page 25 of 49.
Sorry, Dinah, can I just hold you for 1 second?
Yep.
I think just for procedural purposes, I just need to get this motion on the floor with a mover and a seconder before we can entertain an amendment from, I think, the procedures, if I am understanding them correctly. So just hold your thoughts. So does anybody else have any questions or comments before that? I am not seeing any. So just before we move to that piece, I will need a mover and a seconder just to, I guess, bring this recommendation from Derek to the floor. So I see Councillor Tozo and Regan. And then now Dinah would be your opportunity to bring forward that. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion on page 25 of 49. In the first paragraph under the heading service animals, deleting service animals may also provide assistance to persons with post-traumatic stress disorder, epilepsy, autism spectrum disorder, and a variety of other disabilities, both visible and invisible. And replacing with service animals may provide assistance to persons with a variety of disabilities, both visible and invisible, such as medical response, mobility assistance, hearing, and combinations thereof. That we change it to visible, or sorry, that it be, changed to, that we delete the second paragraph and replace it with the bold sections. That it's just be visual, and I've lost my spot, sorry.
That's okay, Dinah. We actually,
invisible.
I have it on the screen for people
you?
to read
Okay.
as well, so it is a bit wordy,
Oh,
so maybe I can
yeah.
spare you having to read that out
Thank
and
you.
give folks a few moments to read that, and then
That
I'll
would
bring
be
it
great.
down, Madam Chair.
Thanks.
Just to confirm, does anybody still require the wording on the screen? If so, just put your hand up, and if I don't see any hands, I will take it down. Councillor Tozo, yep, we'll give a couple more moments. No, you're good? Okay. I'll take it down the screen share, Madam Chair.
I have a question.
Well, yeah, I'm going to turn it back over to the chair. Sorry, I kind of just jumped in there for a second.
Thank you. So again, the general amendment, for what I understand, is amending basically two sections of two separate paragraphs, just to provide a little bit broader wording from what I understand it, as opposed to specifics of certain like specific disabilities, that kind of thing. So again, I guess we take questions. Okay.
So through you, Madam Chair, Dinah would have the first opportunity as the mover of the amendment to speak to the amendment, and then we could move on to other members of the committee to speak to it.
So,
okay. Do you have anything additional to add, Dinah, then?
No, it's mainly as it's put forth.
Okay, thanks. So I can take questions. So I understand as well, sorry. It was on the screen, but it is being moved by Dinah and seconded by Andy, from what I understand. And so this is now on the floor for discussion and questions from the committee. And so Councillor Tozo, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a question for staff. Are there any practical implications that or concerns that staff have with enforcing this or with this amendment?
Thank you. And through the chair, Councillor Tozo, no worries whatsoever. I appreciate the constructive feedback, and I feel this is wording that is better than what was originally there. So no problem whatsoever.
Perfect. Great. I'm pleased to vote for this. Great amendment.
Are there any other questions or concerns from the committee via this amendment? Okay, so the only thing, sorry, Caitlin, do we approve the amendment or improve first and then the recommendation as a whole?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes. So we will vote, or the committee will vote on the amendment first. And if that passes, then they would then vote on the motion as amended. And if it loses, we would go back to the original motion and vote on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So again, this is moved by Dinah, seconded by Andy. And so we're really looking for, at this point in time, an all in favor on the amendment as it stands. So an all in favor is what we are looking for. Seeing that, so that carries. And then so going back to the initial recommendation, we also have to approve that piece, which is the recommendation that MAC does recommend to council that this policy as amended with those amendments attached as the exhibit that you saw be approved. And also that the city of Kingston, I don't think, okay, as approved in that sense. And so I need a mover and a seconder. So I see Sadie, I see Andy, and then all in favor on that full recommendation. Thank you, and thank you for your patience. Usually we don't have these procedural things, and usually it's straightforward, but this is great. Learning for all of us, especially me. Okay, so that brings us to our next item of business, which is the accessibility office update for Q2 of 2024. And we are delighted to bring Derek back to introduce this report for us.
Happy to be back. And yes, that is a first in all my years at Mac, but very well done. So thanks everybody, and very well done, Amy, as chair as well. So happy to speak to the Accessibility Office report. The major part of this report, as we all know, is the statistics regarding accessibility inquiries. It's a similar pattern to the last several reports I've bought. Inquiries have increased, especially when looking at like the past 5-year standard. It's important to note that we do still have 2 years of COVID in there when the number of inquiries decreased drastically, since there was not much, at least, happening in terms of access to city services at that time. The same departments that have the largest number of inquiries also remain consistent: parking, and specifically dealing with the issues of people parking illegally in accessible spaces, issues with ticketing for people not being aware that you are required to pay for accessible parking in Kingston, and those matters. Another one that has seen some increase is with respect to recreation facilities and reporting barriers that exist there. One way I tend to view these is, while it is not great to be seeing the numbers increase, it is important that people are at least reporting the barriers, because then they can be addressed as well. And it also indicates to me that there is work that needs to be done. So that is sort of the flip side of the coin there. To speak to some matters that are not related to the statistics, but other work that the Accessibility Office is participating in. After a few-year process as part of the launch of the new city's website, the accessibility features interactive map is now available on the city website. Staff are working to update that as we get a chance to visit facilities and confirm that the features are still there, and are looking to add new facilities and parks as they come online. To ensure that the information is the most accurate, there's a review period scheduled for each facility at least once per year. And of course, if we receive feedback from a resident that a feature is no longer existing or there's damage, we will take the appropriate steps to update. So welcome to any and all feedback as we work to perfect that tool. Looking at other items that are coming up as part of planning for items in the 3rd and 4th quarter of the year, the city is again participating in Disabilities Mentoring Day, which takes place in late October of this year. I've been advised that we have 8 staff members that have volunteered to participate. We hope that we will get matches. In the case with Disabilities Mentoring Day, that does not always occur. And I realize for those on the call who may not be aware, Disabilities Mentoring Day partners job-ready persons with disabilities with people who are working in a related field, and it's a day of job shadowing. So a chance for participants to build up their networks and their connections and get a chance to see what a career in a field they're interested in might be like. But also for the city, it gives us a valuable chance to see how our facilities and workplaces are set up to welcome persons working with disabilities. And also, I think a big one is a chance for staff to break down barriers that may be perceived about working with persons with disabilities in the workplace. So I'm very excited, and I'll have more to share with my next quarterly report on that. One of the last things I'll mention is staff are currently in the planning stages right now for the Celebrating Accessibility Awards. The nomination period will be opening shortly, with the celebration taking place in early December. Christine is leading that work, and she will provide more information to the committee as it comes up, but we hope everybody will be able to join us at the celebration, which is being held in the same location as last year at the I'm afraid I'm losing the name of it, but it is the Donald Gordon Hotel and Conference Center at Queen's University's West Campus area. And lastly, I'll just note there were some amendments made to the work plan. Initially, there was supposed to be a report brought to this meeting from the city's emergency planning and preparedness group. Due to some scheduling conflicts, that has been moved to early 2025. I will note our next meeting in November, there's quite a few presentations from outside groups, particularly transportation and public works services, which also includes Kingston Transit. And I know the committee has quite an interest in that topic. I would say is if there's anything in particular you'd like to see addressed, please send that to Christine directly, and she can pass it along to staff to make sure they are prepared to address it either as part of their report or during their presentation. We also hope to be receiving an update from one of our newer departments, the Community Development and Wellbeing Group, which also has a responsibility for equity, diversity, inclusion, and indigenization, specifically focused on work for age-friendly communities, but also to cover a bit of what that new department will be doing as well. And perhaps the last thing I will say before I turn it back to the chair is many committee members are coming up to the end of your term, which is November 30th of this year. Christine will be sharing more information with those who do need to reapply if they wish to continue to serve on the committee. That process will be taking place throughout October. So it's just a matter of completing the same application form you would have previously if you are interested in returning to the committee. And I hope that everybody here, if you are available, are interested in coming back. And on that note, Amy, I will turn it back to you and happy to answer any questions and receive any feedback.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. I feel like there was a lot of good stuff and lots of stuff in this report, lots of great updates. So are there any questions from the committee for Derek on this report? Megan.
Hey there. So I'll ask a more detailed question, perhaps in an email about the map, because I mean that's just kind of my thing. But I was curious about the functionality in the sense of the forward-facing map, what we can work with. When zoomed out, it's a bit harder to deal with, like the knowing exactly what the symbols point at. Like it's not, semi-opaque or semi-translucent, for example, or if there's a lot of symbols on top of each other, you can't quite see which one's which without being able to divide them into perhaps like category types in terms of, things that are like the, say, accessible signals and being separated from things like accessible benches so that it's easier to see. I've almost imagined something like the zoning bylaw map, how you can choose to see or unsee particular sets of zones or subzones or specific sites or whatnot. Maybe have the same sort of feature where you can select and unselect things like pedestrian features, parking features, and entry features, for example, or some sort of kind of contextual grouping like that. So you don't see everything all at once on top of each other. Does that make sense in terms of a
Yes.
web? Perfect. Thanks.
I understand perfectly, Megan. And yes, I do agree. When you look at it zoomed out, there is a lot of content and data there. So I believe there are opportunities to build in filters and layers. And perhaps I like your suggestion of organizing it based on sort of general themes. I may reach back out to you just to get some thoughts and feedback on that. But I will do some look into that and be able to provide an update as part of my next report.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Dorothy Ann.
Just a quick question. I had a quick glance at it. I was digging through it, like Megan was saying, trying to figure out what was where. But I noticed a dearth of things outside the downtown area on the map there. And is it just that there aren't things outside the downtown area, or have they just not been mapped?
Great question, Dorothy Ann, and thank you. It's a bit of a functionality of the fact that I work out of the downtown area, so it's easy for me to get to those places, but the plan is to expand to more areas in the East End, West End, and add new facilities as they come on. But I will admit Kingston is somewhat downtown focused, but the intention is once we have things updated to add new facilities where possible. And if anybody in the committee has suggestions on things that could be added that are city facilities, I'll focus on because I do have a modicum of control over those, then let me know via email and I'm happy to add them to our list.
Okay. Are you planning to merge it at all with Access Now, that database? Or is there a link to Access Now as well?
Just for clarification, I believe Access Now is like a private user-generated content for accessibility, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so that's something that could be explored again. We're sort of we finally launched it, but that would be something I'm going to make a note of that and take a look and see if there's a way to share information, because in theory, it's all on the back end in a GIS format. So I'll make note of that. Thank you, Dorothy Ann.
Thank you.
Andy?
Yes, thank you. Will there be an opportunity, say, for a subcommittee to, for example, those of us that are in the West End, to assist with visiting these facilities and reporting back what we're finding accessibility wise that can then be used for this mapping?
I think that is something, again, that could be contemplated as we get a bit further along. But again, with the restriction that these are city facilities only that we can use. So I believe most of the major recreation centers have been mapped. It might just be some other parks and outside spaces, but I'll make note of that as well, Andy.
Any other questions, comments for Derek? I'm not seeing any, so thank you. This report was for information only, so no movers and seconders needed for this. And so our final, oh, sorry, Kate.
Sorry, Amy, just to jump in, we do have a member of the public in attendance, so I might just give them an opportunity in case they would like to speak to this report. They can raise their hand. Give them one moment. Okay, I'm not seeing any movement. Thanks, Amy.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I tend to only see what's on my screen. And I sometimes forget about the public, so sorry, public, if you are watching. So our final section is appointments of project teams. So there's two different project teams up for looking for members, basically. So we need, for the Aberdeen Street, we're looking for one appointment. We can do that one first if we like. Is that Dinah volunteering? Yes, okay. And then our second one is the Small Dog Park Areas Project Team, which seems to be Rotary, Memorial, McLean Trail Park areas, and they're looking for two appointments for that one. Is there anybody would like to join? I see Regan. Does anybody want to join? Andy? Perfect. So we have our two, so we just have to confirm basically all of them with a confirmation of vote. So I just need a mover and a seconder for those appointments. I see Susan and Sadie. Thank you. And then all in favor of those three appointments. Perfect. Thank you. And so part 8, we didn't have any motions. We also didn't have any notices of motions. Now in the other business section, is there any other business that someone would like to bring up? Dorothea, go ahead.
Yes, I had just two quick things. One is in my other volunteer life, I am on the community council for our local Frontenac, Lennox, and Abington, Ontario health team. And they're the people who are sort of trying to organize healthcare in the local area here. And we're always looking for new representatives. And I thought of this committee because I think I'm the only person with a disability on the community council. And I feel we need more voices because we sort of slip off the table, right? So anyway, I have the link. I will put, I can't do a chat, but if you look up the FLA OHT and I'll send it out, I'll send it to Derek to circulate. There are two ways you can volunteer. One, you can be like an associate member, which doesn't require a whole lot of time commitment. They'll call you in if they have issues that they would like to have addressed. And the other one is a member of the committee proper. And I think we're quite full there, but we're also looking to diversify. So people will be leaving and we'll be bringing more people on. And I really would encourage any of you to apply because we really do need those voices and something, just a little bit better representation of everybody who is dealing with life in this city, which is a lovely city, which I adore, but we need to have input. The other thing that came up today when I was just for a question for this committee is I was at a meeting with the Primary Care Council and they mentioned that the city is building a new hospital, which is the first time I've heard of that. And I was wondering if Derek, if you knew anything about whether or not this committee would be asked to provide input on that, or if they're looking for input. I know it's in its very, very starting stages, but.
Madam Chair, I can take it. The only one that I am aware of is Providence Care building on Princess Street, which I don't believe is the same thing. That's the only thing I'm aware of in terms of. I'm not aware at this point of any firm plans for a new hospital. I don't believe anything has come to the city in that regard. So, however, if the city were to be involved in a project like that, there definitely is potential for consultation here, but to the best of my knowledge, nothing has come to the city in that regard.
I suppose I should have asked Councillor Tozo. I'm sorry. I would have thought you would have input. Thank you, Derek. You haven't heard of anything? Yep. Okay. All right. Well, they were talking about it, and apparently it's out there. So I don't know. Something's happening. Anyway, thank you so much, Amy, for letting me speak. And that's all I had to say was come join me on the council. Help me rule the world.
Great, thank you. Is there any other business that anybody would like to bring up? Seeing none. So correspondence, we didn't have any correspondence. Our next meeting, again, just a reminder, is Thursday, November 7th. So we don't meet in October, just in November at 1 o'clock, which brings us to the final part of our agenda, which is adjournment, which I do need a mover and a seconder for that piece as well. So I see Regan and I see Andy, and all in favor of adjournment today.